All right, guys, thank y'all for watching. And we are on part 2 of the Container Life podcast, and we're talking about Earthship community building. I'm so excited. We got the awesome Rex Knickerbocker on here. The first section, we talked about what is an intentional community, what's an Earthship community, what are some of the benefits of the Earthship community, and also we spoke specifically about Earthship construction. This session is going to be about blockchain, how to include it in international affairs, as well as education in some of those benefits associated using blockchain and experiences with Earthship. So, question number 1, you ready?
Ready.
All right. So our first question is, how can blockchain technology be integrated in this type of green construction, and what are some of the benefits of it?
Perfect. So when I was working toward this idea of mobile living, off-grid living, Earthships, kind of doing that, and then the other main goal of community being the end, all of us benefiting from better communities as a result of this work that I've been doing. Part of the process was trying to decide how we would manage all the assets that we would be creating. So part of blockchain, when it's used as money, is that it's able to allow you to transfer your value around and to track your value. So some items in the world that we create continue to have value year after year. They're not something you consume. You know, a tomato you would consume, but a garden, the land that's going to grow a tomato plant, that tomato plant can keep growing, or a tree can keep giving fruit. And houses and structures also kind of have that thing that they continue to have value over time. That's why we can still rent them out. Well, what I thought was that it was better to reward people for building something that is durable, reward them over time for that. So to do that, what we have is a blockchain structure where to create the token or coin, or in the sense of regular banking, the regular market, it would be called a share of a company. Every time we create one of those, we're doing it as a result of obtaining some asset of some kind. So it's asset backed, and the assets that we're taking, if they're durable assets, then we give a share. If they're not durable assets, we would just give dividend style compensation for that. So these assets, let's say these greenhouse structures, whoever builds them and puts them on the platform, think Airbnb, when you put your house on the Airbnb platform, it would be as if Airbnb gave you shares at that time. When you said, hey, I'm going to loan Airbnb my house for a year, how about Airbnb loans me some shares for a year? So those shares generate dividends. In my system, I called the shares stake because it's kind of a cryptocurrency word, blockchain word. And I called the dividends portion, I called those points. In the timeshare world, if you can imagine a timeshare that was done right, as opposed to the malicious kind of corrupt timeshares that most of us are familiar with. If a timeshare was done right, once you give money, then that should be it. You've invested. You're an investor. You should be receiving dividends. You shouldn't be, required to pay in more. It makes sense. You gave an investment. You should get returns on that investment. And then you should be able to cash out at some point in the future when you no longer want to be invested. So that's how I see this structure. And we're using blockchain to make that happen so that it's decentralized and it's not all controlled in one location. Somehow, things being controlled in one location that become powerful, they end up being a target for malicious people, even though that is what it is. We're trying to avoid that by forming a distributed autonomous organization that manages these things. So the way it would work is someone would come up with these greenhouses on their own, or they would help with a team that's building these greenhouses. And then the ownership would stay with the owner of that greenhouse. But when they decide to participate in the short-term rental market of the community style, they would basically not have to stay in their unit. They could live in any unit across the world, across the globe, that will be having these communities throughout the world. So it allows them to travel, and they'll be getting rewarded with points. This is like timeshare credits. And then they would spend those timeshare credits wherever they go, just like they would if they were spending money on Airbnb. So there's still a way where you bid on different assets where you want to stay, but you're not bidding money. You're bidding with timeshare credits that you've already earned because of work you did at the beginning, because you put in labor for 6 months to build a few greenhouses. That labor gets converted into shares, ownership, and then that ownership rewards you like fruit on a tree year after year after year, and you can use those rewards to travel and stay in any of these locations throughout the world.
Well, like you said, travel and world. My next question is, how can the Earthship model be adapted or adopted globally? What are some ways that this business, this construction, this type of building can be used anywhere? Take into consideration the different climates that are out there. Do you feel people can adopt it globally and use it as how you're describing, or do you think tweaks would need to be made in order for it to be fully adopted in different climates?
I think that's a good question. We haven't really done enough testing. All we have is prior work. Prior work says that underground is pretty much the safest way to keep your climate from fluctuating. From fluctuating too much. So being underground is great. So we're kind of simulating that by building very tall walls that are very, very thick. So they have a large thermal mass. The other thing about scalability is that we'll be using heavy equipment to excavate and then fill these big bags. So all I really had to design, I didn't have to design an excavator. Those are available throughout the world. I just had to design tooling to create these bags and basically big cups, these big cylinders. I had to build some tooling for that, which I designed, which allows us to spool up the twine on that big spool. And it's computer controlled so that we get the right amount of twine at the right spot. You don't actually need as much strength at the top as you do at the bottom, because at the bottom you're under a lot more weight. So in order to not waste any twine, we've got it computer controlled so that there's more strength at the bottom and less at the top. Yeah, that's kind of, what else did I miss?
Nothing. That's perfect.
Okay, cool.
I think viewers probably want to understand for that type of model, because people ask the same question about shipping containers. Well, what about near the beach? And what about this? And what about that? It doesn't make a difference how you build it. If it has a stable build type, it doesn't matter the climate type, location, or any of that. So thank you for sharing it. So let's go back to some money situations. What are some of the economic aspects of Earthship constructing? I don't like to use the word cheaper, but is it average cost in comparison to doing stick and brick? Is it more costly? Is it less costly? What are your insights about that? And also, what are some ways that if people are interested in preparing to build with earthships, what are some ways that they can start financially preparing?
Perfect. So the differences, the most expensive parts of construction are typically kitchens and bathrooms. But if you also take out bedrooms and living rooms, you're kind of, all you've done is built a shell. That ends up being very, very inexpensive. So that's our focus, is on the shell. And if someone didn't have a nice, beautiful, luxurious RV to bring in, maybe if it had a leak, maybe if the heater didn't work, that wouldn't be a problem because it's an earthship. So earthships just provide basically the climate that you want, and you don't have to worry about heating or cooling outside of what the earthship already provides, at least not much. There may be, we haven't tested all of this yet, so there may be some difficulty keeping the entire space heated or cooled. If that's the case, we might end up putting a double layer of plastic on the roof so that we have some stagnant air insulation, just like double paned windows, but maybe 3 or 4 feet of empty space air between the 2 layers of plastic. That only costs an extra layer of plastic and ways to attach it around the edge. So that's one method that we could use. In terms of other price implications, we are planning to use such few number of materials and amount of materials. Honestly, I went through quite a few iterations of this design before I came up with the design to just build a tool, wrap string around it, put some stucco, cement, cob around that, and fill it with dirt. That was actually quite a few iterations down the road. The first models still were kind of labor intensive and also a little bit more costly. But now the number of supplies, the number of materials needed has gone down so much from just changing the design. So it's quite amazing that if you have the right design to begin with, it can be inexpensive. And that's what's happened, is we're looking at materials wise, we're looking at maybe $4,000 of material for 4,000 square foot of greenhouse.
Wow.
You've got to pay for the land, you got to pay for the rental of the equipment, and you got to pay for some labor. But ultimately, I think 25 grand is probably going to be enough to get someone a share for life, where they no longer have to have any concerns about survival, really. Basic needs could be provided with either their labor, if they come out and work, or their money, if they pay someone else to do the work. Now, initially, the way I'm setting up the crowdfunding approach here is we're selling shares of a community farm, which is just agricultural land that doesn't have anything on it. And those shares are 1/8 of an acre. They cost $3,000. To swap from agricultural to agri-living type zoning, that's going to be an extra $1,000 per unit, because we'll have to put you in a different location, and we have to pay a legal team to get what would just be a farm into somewhere where we can live year-round inside the farm, inside the greenhouse structures. So then you'd be at a place where you could move out there. Actually, for $4,000, we can provide a place. We have locations for sale right now. We're in Utah, because that's where we're starting most of this. But we plan to scale throughout the whole earth, because the community is, you got to scale in order to solve this problem, to help people. So that's stage one, is we're getting people to help us crowdfund and show their intent that they like the idea. And that the cost of that is $3,000 or $4,000. That $3,000 or $4,000 would be a deposit.
He's still under $50,000 right now, guys. I just want, if y'all not doing the math, he's still under $50,000 for a 4,000 square foot home. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's true. So We don't provide your RV. That's up to you. You bring that. But if you bring a tent, you're still going to survive, and you're still going to, bring some grow towers and some solar panels, and you really can survive in one of these things just fine, because it's climate controlled. It's just, dirt floor probably, and a garden. And another thing I really love about it is you don't really have to wonder what type of air you're breathing, because you're kind of producing your air with those plants in the garden. You don't have to look up in the sky and say, I hope my neighbors don't fly a drone over my house, dump something on me. Well, you don't have to worry about that. So that's another benefit. Where were we in terms of price? So the startup, if you guys are interested in getting an early priority, you'll get an early share number by buying now. And so you'll be first on the list when we actually get these built, and or if you want to help build them. Both of those cases, you'll be early share priority, and the total cost is just going to be. I'm not actually trying to get rich in terms of money. I know we need to be profitable in order to scale, and I am looking to scale, but we don't need as much as you might think. A lot of companies are making a lot more money than is necessary for them to provide the service they provide. If they actually just wanted to provide service, the prices would be different. That's my intent, is to solve a problem, and the riches that I receive is actually the solution to the problem, which I'm looking for 10 million people to be involved in this little algorithm that helps everyone find the perfect neighbor for them. Neighborhood. That's my intent. And the cost is really low, honestly. You've got land. If I sell a piece of land for $3,000 and it's an eighth of an acre, there's still a lot of margin there for growth and for paying my salespeople, because you can find good land for $1,000 an acre in some areas. It's not next to the city, but I do have land near cities right now. So we have those options. I know that's where we're going to start. Eventually, when we get this ironed out all the way, where people realize they don't need the city for anything, that would be amazing. We could buy beautiful, beautiful land that just isn't near a city.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the goal.
So in that same vein, you mentioned a little bit, if you wanted to build it with you all, what are some educational and work opportunities available for your projects and these Earthship communities that you're building?
I'd say the best opportunity right now is someone that was interested in getting involved, and they were confident in their ability to, with living near a city, but just living boondocking in an RV, then they could pay $4,000. They could get themselves a share. They'd have a place where they could go live off grid with other people that are doing the same thing. And then at that point, we would have on-site education as we start building these in that same area, because we'll have different units sold and some units that aren't sold yet. And those units that aren't sold yet, we would actually be constructing one of these one after the other. They share a wall. The 10-foot thick wall is shared between two units. Like I said, it looks kind of like a big parking lot right now, the designs I have, only because it's scalable. It's not because it's the prettiest way to design a community, but it's extremely scalable and efficient. And that's how we're able to offer everything for basically one or 2 years if you were working somewhere else. But if you actually just come work here, you're looking at less than 6 months of labor to have your retirement, in a sense, guaranteed. Never have to go without a place to stay. And we don't have property taxes in these areas for a couple reasons. Good legal team. But prior to that, we can use it as religious land if that becomes part of a church, and that's our worship. Some people, that is their worship. They sit next to the plants and meditate. I think that's as valid as anyone else's religion. So
for sure. I love that.
It becomes a sanctuary. It's a sanctuary city.
That's right. I love that. And for those who are uninformed about religious use for grounds, graveyards, it's your land, depending on how you have it set up, as you mentioned, legally, you all are able to live tax-free, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm not saying go kill a cat and bury it in your backyard now. That's not what I mean by graveyard, just so we clear. It has to be a human body, so don't go killing nobody either. And it has to be registered and just little things like that. So I say all that to say that we're coming to the end of our show. We're so grateful. Please let everybody know your name again, the company you represent or the community that you represent, and how they can reach out to you.
Okay, so my name is Rex Knickerbocker. Ways you can contact me. I don't always look at all of my mails or messages because I value my meditative mind better than being connected. But people are able to get a hold of me through Telegram, through email. My email is let's just go to Telegram. It's REXATED, Rexated, on Telegram and on almost all the other socials. So that's probably the best way to get hold of me. Apart from the real best way, we're going to have appointment calendar in the description around this video. And you'll be able to set an appointment if you're interested in learning more, talking to me, getting a unit for yourself, or helping us grow this team, which is right now it's kind of turned to a marketing team. Prior, it was engineering, and it was mostly myself. And as people heard at the beginning of this show, it was really meditation before it was engineering. And then it was engineering, and now we're shifting to the marketing phase. So we're going to be doing a lot of marketing and selling a lot of shares in community farms. And then we'll go back to the construction phase because we've done the engineering. Now we're going to do the marketing. Then we'll get to the construction phase in a way that's scalable and people will be able to participate.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Well, Rex, we appreciate your time today. We are so grateful that you came and you educated. You are welcome back anytime. So if you think of something else that we did not go over in this session, we can more than likely have you back again in the future. And as he mentioned before, guys, please, without a doubt, reach out to him on Telegram. When this is fully posted, you will be able to contact him through a calendar link to reach out to him directly. And I'm sure there's more about the community that he's building that he hadn't shared today. So I would encourage you all to write your questions down before you schedule your appointment and send an agenda to him so that he can prepare and be able to help you all identify your needs and how you all can be a part of building community together. And thank you, Rex. Thank you for being on the Container Life. We appreciate you. And definitely, I hope that everything that you're doing, if we can support you in any way, please let us know. We are a construction company. We have multiple GCs, architects, engineers, everybody in between. And depending on where you're at, if they're licensed in those states, we will happily extend them out to you. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good one.